Hey there, welcome back to Creepy Encounters. In today's video, guy nearly shoots me in a public area in broad daylight and blames me for missing his shot. Teacher tried to kidnap me. You never know who's watching. I've posted on another subreddit before on something unrelated. I was original, going to submit it there. I wasn't sure if it was the right subreddit to submit it on. If I should move it, tell me, thanks. Now let us begin the tale of how I almost died and was blamed for it. Before I continue, I must inform everyone of the layout of the street. Our street back then was one of the ones that had a lot of construction going out at the time. The apartment we lived in was next to a building that was being constructed. Next to the construction site, there is a small wooden shack. I originally thought it was abandoned due to never seeing anyone come in or out of it. I usually pass it due to one of the places my family prays is behind the construction site while the second on the street is way further, so we always use the one behind the construction site. This entire event occurred around 3 years ago during my last year of middle school. At that time in my life, I was expected to go to the grocery store that is next to the building where my family prays. I've done this at this point many times and never encountered anything that could be a threat to me. How wrong I was. When I returned from school, I was tired due to it being the last day of midterms. My mom immediately asked me to the grocery store that was stated, to which I happily agreed. I went to the grocery store with some cash but was still in my school uniform and my phone. I got a call from a friend of mine and we were both speaking English due to our school enforcing foreign languages more than the country languages, and because we got used to using it more. That is when I encountered the main reason this entire thing ever began in the first place. I just want to state something really quickly. That is, I don't judge people on any aspect, and that I don't see anyone more or less important than the other, and you find out why I said that. While I was passing through the narrow path next to the shack, which is accessible to everyone, I see a man getting out of the shack, but I don't really focus on him. That was until the guy got a hunting rifle with him and pointed it at me. I'm not ashamed that I screamed and my country language asked him what the hell he was doing. When he hears me speak my country language, he gets a confused expression plastered all over his face. He says, "Boy, get away from my food." I'm now the confused one. I don't know what he is talking about, and a part of me thinks he wouldn't shoot a kid in broad daylight. Well, that all washes away when that psycho actually shoots his actual real rifle in the middle of the street. In broad daylight. He then says in anger, "You made me a mess. What is your problem, you?" He then throws some choice words. I prefer not writing one for several reasons. He later says that those damn pigeons keep coming on top of his shack. I just stare at the guy and tell him what the actual hell is. He said, "You're fine and not an idiot," and ran to my mother or else. At that, he points his gun this time at me. I thank God every day for sending me my savior, who is a guy who usually hangs around the area of a nearby cafe, and me and my dad have met him before. He questions why I'm pointing a gun at a kid. This man was 6.5 while the guy with the gun 5.5 or something along those lines. He quickly gets intimidated and points his gun at the man, in which angers his posse of friends who happen to see their friend and minor in danger. Now a group of 10 adult men is surrounding this guy. The guy tries something that would make his day a whole lot worse and says his military and that they should back off or they will suffer greatly. In my country, the military has some serious power, and pissing one of them can get you in some serious problems. I should also mention impersonating an officer could cause as much if not more trouble. We informed him we had everything on video lie, but worked. He quickly scuttles off, never to be seen by us again, and he drops his gun, which is taken by one of the group members. I ended up not telling my mother until yesterday about what happened. I was shaken up by the event, and would suffer from nightmares where I would feel the impact of the bullet in my chest. So that's how I almost died. If you read this far, thank you, and sorry for any grammar mistakes. Like I said, English isn't my first language. For the record, I looked up gun laws in my city and found out it's illegal to own a firearm unless you work in the police or military. Stay safe everyone, and enjoy your life with your loved ones. 4. The crazy gun-wielding maniac with a guy who thinks it's okay to shoot a loaded gun in a public area and nearly killed me. Let's not meet ever again, you psycho. During the beginning of my freshman year, one of my teachers was having some health problems, so we had subs most days. This happened a few months after she came back. One day my dad was in the grocery and I was waiting outside for him. I was sitting on a bench when one of the subs we had came up to me. There was a gym across the street and he looked like he had just come from it, as he was wearing workout clothes and was holding a large duffel bag. He knew my name and started talking to me about school. Me, being young and naive, just thought he was being friendly and didn't realize anything was off. After a while he sat down on the bench and got really close to me. We had been talking about a book that I was reading for school, and then he started telling me that he had a signed copy of it in his car and that he would really like to show it to me. I know I'm stupid, but at that point I still didn't really think anything was off. He kept on mentioning his car and that he needed to drop his bag off, but he'd really like to continue the conversation and could I walk with him. About 20 minutes into the conversation, I know, should have been a red flag. What teacher talks to a student in public for that long? My dad finally came out and freaked out when he saw a random middle-aged man talking to his teenage daughter. When the sub saw my dad, he introduced himself as my teacher but then left really hurriedly. Somehow at that point I still didn't feel that off until a week later when I was reading the book we had been talking about and something clicked. I started freaking out. He was huge, like well over 6 feet tall, and he could have easily overpowered me if he got me to his car. Plus we were mostly by ourselves in the car park. Also, he could have had anything in that duffel bag. I think the final thing that confirmed his intentions was when a few weeks later I had stayed after school to talk to a teacher and was taking a shortcut through one of the campus buildings. I was the only one in the hallway and looked into one of the classrooms and saw him. We made eye contact and he yelled my name. I started running down the hallway as fast as I could and he started screaming at me to wait. He needed to talk to me. I didn't stop running until I was a few blocks away from the school. After that he kind of disappeared. I never really saw him again. I really wanted to report him, but I actually had no idea what his name was. None of my friends did. I feel especially bad about that because what if he's done it to others since then? I guess one silver lining of online school is that as a sub he's probably out of a job and the lockdown would make it harder for him to do that to others. In the late 90s, around the Puget Sound area there was a train tunnel that stretched for about a mile from one side of the peninsula to the other. We would frequently walk through it because 1, it was off limits, and 2, it was pitch black for 80% of the walk. Trains would barrel through, emitting such a sound that would rumble through your whole body. You would have to go to one side of the tracks and hold on to the cold damp cement wall while the train passed. On the other side was a secluded, beautiful view of the waterway. Local teenagers and young adults would walk through and usually party here. Just a bit further was a small campsite that I'm assuming was used by homeless and train hobos. One summer we decided to camp out and do what teenagers do. We set up camp, started a fire and began our night of revelry. As we began to unwind and turn in for the night, we noticed as the fire started to dim that there was a large man standing just beyond the firelight. We were startled and began to yell out, "Who's there?" and "Come out," among other things. The man approached slowly and walked to the campfire. He gave us his name and claimed to be camped just a little further down the tracks. We all knew at this point that he was homeless and also suffered from some mental illness. He gave us all the creeps and we all had bad feelings about him. He would endlessly ramble about nonsense and tell horror stories of being a transient along the train tracks. Eventually the fire died down and beer stopped flowing and the homeless man drifted back to his camp. That night we did not sleep very well or at all. Fast forward about 2 years later. Long story short, I was arrested at my 21st birthday party for being intoxicated in public. Go figure. I was enjoying my slumber on the county-provided bedding in my cozy cell when I noticed that the guy in the corner talking to himself was the homeless man from years past. Still a little buzzed, I approached him and asked him how he was. He was a bit disheveled, but after a few minutes of talking he took a dark turn and said, "You kids don't know how lucky you are. I was watching you for hours, and I was about to chop you all up." The remainder of my stay at the jail was a bit unnerving and was lucky to be released early that next morning. I'm not sure if he was pulling my chain, but the feeling we all had that night we first met and the feeling I had at our next encounter left me to believe that we were truly lucky to be alive. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe for more real-life creepy encounters around